My name is Bruno, and my parents are Brazilian. Ever since I was a child, my parents constantly tried to instill me with some sort of Brazilian pride and heritage. That's me, right there, the one with the circle. But because there aren't many that Brazilians in the United States generally, and certainly not in the Midwest, I never really got the opportunity to be around my people. And so, as I was growing up, I always faced kind of a weird decision to make. Was I Brazilian, like my parents exclaimed I was, or was I American? I mean, they taught me all the basics of being Brazilian, if that makes any sense. They taught me the culture, they taught me the language, all that good stuff. I mean, to this day, I can still speak Portuguese for y'all. But, as a child, I always thought it was just kind of some dumb stuff only my parents really cared about. Since there were no Brazilian kids or families in the area, I never really had the opportunity to flex my knowledge or language, or even come to understand what being Brazilian really meant outside of my family. This experience was really isolating, especially when I saw some of my other friends go to massive cultural events that represented their nationality, especially when their nationality wasn't American. It was weird because, on some level, I also thought I was American, but I knew, based on the way the Americans treated me, that I wasn't. So I had to kind of move between being Brazilian and American, with the Americans telling me that I wasn't American because I was partially Brazilian. These people pushed me into feeling like I was more Brazilian than American. So I felt like I would find myself isolated around all of these different Americans. I felt like I was a Brazilian alone on an island of Americans. It really made me think that being Brazilian wasn't significant. After all, I did think it was just some dumb stuff only my parents cared about. But after I went to Brazil for the first time, that part of my identity really started to develop and sink in. I ate my grandparents' food for the first time, I met all of my cousins for the first time, and I finally started to understand what being Brazilian meant. It forced me to realize that being Brazilian was more than just something my parents wanted me to be, or wanted me to recognize, but it was inherently a part of who I already was. After I got back, though, I went back to a world where no Brazilians existed. America was, after all, the place I grew up, got educated, and made all my friends, but I was still back on the island of Americans. At this point, I realized I wasn't just Brazilian, or just American, and that was okay. I'm both. I'm both Brazilian and American. I'm Brazilian American. And even though it's hard sometimes, I think of it as a fun little adventure I'm going on. I'm coming to understand myself by myself, and that means I get to make myself into what I want to be. No one else gets to tell me what that journey is. And, truth be told, I still feel weird from time to time, that I don't feel exclusively Brazilian or American, that I'm kind of this weird in-between. But I take solace in the fact that most of my friends are the same way. They're Nigerian American, or they're Ethiopian American, they're Mexican American, or they're Indian American. They're all like me, and it's because of these friends that I'm able to grow into myself not just as a Brazilian American, but as a person and a human being.